Story time, lesson 106. Y'all, we're still reading some St. Patrick's Day books just because I love them so much, and this is one of my most favorite. So just sit back and listen and enjoy the story of the luckiest leprechaun. Mackenzie O'Shamrock at your service, but you can call me Mac. I'm a leprechaun, and I don't care if you believe me or not. Get too close and I'll show you who's real with my hammer. I may be small, but we leprechauns are not to be trifled with. There, now that settles that. Pull up a toadstool, or a chair if you're too big, and let me tell you my story. I was born beneath a fairy hill back when the time was new. Ever since, I've been making shoes for the fairy folk and guarding my gold from greedy people. Treasure hunters have to get up pretty early in the morning to get the best of Mackenzie O'Shamrock. And since leprechauns work at night and sleep during the day, I'm up much earlier than most. No, they haven't made a human yet that can outsmart me. Then people found a new way to boil my potatoes. They stopped believing in leprechauns. They believed in all sorts of nonsense. But the little man making shoes beneath their very own hedge couldn't possibly exist. It got so only children and oddballs like Professor Chester believed in me. I didn't need people anyway. I had a nice home under a tree in a quiet park. As long as I had my gold, my work, this leprechaun was content. Every night I cobbled for the fairies. And since all the things do is dance and lose their shoes, my business was really good. Every morning I'd pack away my tools and I'd curl up in my cozy bed. And that is just what I was doing one fine morning when I heard a horrible scratching overhead. Dirt poured down on my favorite armchair. A pair of giant paws burst through the ceiling. My thimble collection was clattering to the floor. I grabbed my hammer and I ran outside to see who was wrecking my house. I expected a goblin, or maybe a horrible monster. I found a shaggy red dog bearing a stinky old soup bone. "Hello," she barked. "Who are you?" "I am Mackenzie O'Shamrock," I shouted. "And you've got some nerve destroying my home. You'll not be stealing my gold, you mangy dog. So just take your bone and go home." "I'm sorry, I really didn't know anybody lived here," said the dog. "Is that your gold? It's very pretty." "Go, shoo, get lost," I shouted. The dog didn't bark. Shaking her head, she said, "I feel terrible. I've got to make this up to you. I'll fix your house and I'll be your guard dog." "I don't need a guard dog," I said. "But you must need a friend. Everyone needs a friend," said the dog. "My name is Lucky. What is yours?" That made me even madder. "Mackenzie O'Shamrock," I yelled. "Oh, that's just right. You just did tell me," Lucky said. "But that's so much to remember. May I just call you Mac? I hope we'll be friends. Everything's more fun when you do it together, don't you think? Why, just the other day Lucky would have gone on like that for hours, but I told her to go away and stay away. Apparently, stay was the only command the dog even knew. From then on, whenever I went somewhere, there was Lucky. She was slobbering over me when I woke up at dusk, and she was on my heels when I gathered cobwebs for thread. Lucky even tailed me when I made my deliveries to the fairies. And she always had a cheerful word, or 100. It drove me nuts. That dog was even happy when it rained. "Rain is where rainbows come from," Lucky said. "I love rainbows, don't you? I would chase them all day." "Well, why don't you go chase them so I can get some quiet around here?" I growled. After a while, Lucky learned not to talk so much, especially when I woke up early in the evening. I won't say we became friends, but she got to be slightly less annoying. Speaking of annoying, remember that human I mentioned a while back? The oddball who believed in leprechauns? That's right, Professor Chester. Well, He has started snooping around my park. After my gold, he cried. Maybe he just wants to be friends, Lucky suggested. I snorted. Humans want only one thing from leprechauns. It's gold, but he won't get the best of Mackenzie O'Shamrock. Professor Chester was getting dangerously close. He even found a fairy shoe. Don't worry, Mac, said Lucky. You've got your guard dog, remember? I won't let anything happen to your gold. I took no comfort in that mutt's ravings. I watched Professor Chester poring over his books of leprechaun lore. If only I could prove their existence, he muttered. I shuddered. Maybe he'll just go away, Lucky said. I thought about packing up, but I liked my cozy life under the tree. Besides, business was good, and it's not so easy to find a park filled with fairies. One day, while I was asleep, the professor found my tree. He was about to capture me and would have gotten my gold for sure when... Woof, 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 woof. Lucky came charging out of the woods. The professor cried, Help! Monster, help! He dropped his map and he ran off screaming. I thought I was having a nightmare. I rolled over and groaned and fell right back to sleep. Professor Chester kept running until he wore out the soles of his shoes. Turned out that Professor Chester was scared of dogs. That evening, I woke up feeling something was wrong. For one thing, the dog wasn't licking my face. Suddenly, with a jerk, I remembered the nightmare. I checked for my gold in all my secret hiding places. It was gone, and so was Lucky. I called Lucky's name until my voice was hoarse, but there was no answer. I felt as if I had lost my shadow and my friend. Then it hit me. My worst fear had come true. The dog wasn't as silly as she seemed. Lucky had duped me into trusting her, and as soon as I had let down my guard, she ran off with my gold. I, Mackenzie O'Shamrock, the smartest leprechaun of all, had finally been tricked out of my treasure. I searched the park for hours, but there was no sign of my gold or of Lucky. I told myself that the dog had skipped off with my treasure, but part of me didn't want to believe it. One minute I was furious, and the next minute I was worried. What if the dog had chased a rainbow into traffic or gotten herself taken to the pound? I couldn't even keep my mind on my missing gold. By dawn, I was the saddest leprechaun in the world. After centuries of being suspicious, I had finally opened my heart, and pow! The first friend I had made had stolen my gold. The sun came up, and I wiped away a tear. Then I heard a voice behind me say, Why are you crying? I turned and saw Lucky, with my gold. Where were you? I yelled. I was worried sick. Lucky licked my face. You do care. I knew we'd be friends. I wiped the dog's slobber from my face and I grumbled. I was worried about my gold. Lucky explained that she had seen Professor Chester nosing around near the tree. After she chased him away, she had hidden my treasure in the tool shed just to make sure it was safe. Then, worn out from excitement, she had fallen asleep. Did you really spend all night looking for me? Lucky asked. Oh, and my gold, I said hastily. But the damage was done. The dog knew I cared, and she wouldn't stop wagging her tail over it. So that's my story. Leprechaun gets gold. Leprechaun gets a dog. Leprechaun loses the gold. Leprechaun admits that a loyal friend is worth more than gold, as long as the friend doesn't slobber too much. Now, if that isn't a tale worth telling upon a toadstool, I'm sure I don't know what is. Hope y'all enjoyed that.